All right, so I'll go ahead and assume that nobody else is hopping in. So I'll start by going over how to create a transaction. So I'm going to just move your little face onto a different screen. And whenever I'm going to go create a transaction, keep in mind that transactions are when you have the buyer and only the buyer. So I'm going to click on Manage Transactions. Then once it loads, I've got a create transaction button in green at the top right that I'm going to click on. And I'm going to look up the address. So in this one, I'm going to pretend like we are listing 420 Moores Road again. Moores Drive, pardon me. Okay, and then it shows the results. I'm going to click on it, and then it pre-populates that address into the fields for the address information. Now I'm going to act as if we are listing with Angela Morgan again. So I type in the agent information. You'll select your name for the agent, and then you would add the MLS ID number. I'll just select one of these, and I'll put, I'm going to see if it'll take an X at the end for a phony number. And then you just go through and make sure that all of the ones with the red asterisks are populated. So I'm going to do a sale price of, we'll do $999,000. And then for the source, if you got this from like an office lead, you can select that, but most of the time you're going to be working your referral network. So for that, I believe it would be a personal referral. And then no, it's not an office lead because it's your referral network. So for acceptance date, this is when the buyer and acceptor have both accepted the agreement. So whoever signed second. So we'll pretend like it was accepted on Friday. Although you should be doing this within 24 hours. So if it was accepted today, try and upload it by tomorrow. But I'm going to pretend like it was on Friday. And then checklist type. So if we've got the buyer and not the seller, then this is going to be a sale checklist. If you have the seller and you sold the property, it's going to be listing sold. And then if it's a lease, if it's a rental property, then rental properties. So for this one, we're going to do sale checklist because I've got a rhetorical buyer. And then type of representation. Again, same thing. We're going to go with purchase. It's the equivalent to sale. Okay, awesome. So we're just going to dismiss that. It's just retelling exactly what I just said. They just renamed it from sale to purchase. Okay, so year built, we'll pretend like this was built roughly 10 years ago. And then for the closing date, this is when you anticipate to settle. If this date changes, it's not a big deal because when you go back into it under the transaction tab, you can change this date and resave it and it'll update and I'll get a notification. So don't worry if you're not too sure yet that it's going to actually close on this date. So I'll choose the end of October and I'll click next. Okay, so now once you've done that and you've gotten it initiated, it goes into an incomplete status. Now, if you don't have the time or don't have some of the information and you leave this screen, it's not as easy to find properties when they are in incomplete status because you won't see them under the same screens as you would if it was already in pending status. So make sure that whenever you're searching for a property, click on this little magnifying glass at the very top left, pardon me, top right, and then you can start typing in the information for the address and you're going to see results across the entire website, even things that are archived. And that's going to give you a much better search result than if you look under some of the specific tiles that show up on the main screen. So just keep that in mind if you don't finish something and it's in this status. So now for the incomplete status, you're going to go through each of the tabs. They will display one at a time. So if you see it come up and it doesn't have all of the tabs, don't freak out because the other ones will show up. You just have to complete the information on the screen that you see. So right now it's on contacts. So I'm going to fill in the information for each of these on the left side panel. And as I go through each one, it'll take me to the next one and the next and the next. And then eventually after I finish this last one, it'll take me to the next tab, which would be, I believe, commissions. So for seller landlord, I would put in the seller information. This is, since we set this up as a theoretical scenario when I have the buyer, this is not my client, but the other agent's client. So this is going to be who's selling the property. So I'm going to pretend that John Smith is selling the property, and I don't have to have his contact info, but if you have any additional info, feel free to add it, because when we go to order title or conveyancing, additional information is always helpful for that. So I'll go ahead and add that in, and then I can click save. Okay, and then click next. Now it takes me to the next one in the panel. So now for the purchaser, this is going to be our client, because in this scenario we have the buyer. So I'm going to do Jane Doe, and we're going to click save. Oh, and it's reminding me that I left a phone number out. Now, typically you will want to actually add their phone number here, but I'm going to do a phony one. So if you ever come to a scenario, which, for example, for title, we ran into this recently where a title company wasn't chosen yet. So if that's the case and you just don't have the information, but you want to get into another tab so that you can add everything that you already have, you can put in placeholder information. Just make sure that you are creating a reminder for yourself to go back and update that information, because if you put in a placeholder, SkySlope isn't going to realize that it's a placeholder for later, so you're not going to get any kind of indication down the line. So only do this if it's really necessary, and make a reminder for yourself. So I'll click save and then next. And this is that title screen where this tends to happen a lot with the placeholders. So closing officer, first and last name. So I will pretend like Shirley is our, I don't actually know her last name. I'm going to just put Smith because I'm not sure her last name off the top of my head. And then for phone number, I'll do my phone number as the phony phone number. And then title company, one abstract. And I'll do Wendy at one abstract.com. Okay. And then save. And next. And then agent representing the other side. I'm going to pretend like Rob is representing the seller. Okay, so phone number 207-6281, I think. Co-broker company is still Realty One Group Advisors. Okay. So again, with all of these screens, remember that you can fill in the additional information, and it might be handy for you down the line. If SkySlope is your source of truth, that would be great, because if you're keeping all of your information saved in SkySlope, then it's in a location where not only can you access all of that information, but we can too, should we need to. So SkySlope is definitely the best place to keep all that on hand if you can. So save and submit. And then once I submit, like I said before, it does go to commission. So now here, when you go to create the transaction, it will prompt you for the listing and sale commission. So in SkySlope, it wants it split. So you don't want to list the listing commission as the full 6% and then the sale commission is 3%. You want to do it split based on the broker buyer agency agreement. So For the sale commission, we'll do 3. So this is assuming that it's a 6% total with a 3% split. So just make sure that you recall that, because that is one of the common questions. So 3%, 3%, and then it automatically will calculate the commission on the sale. And if you do represent both sides, SkySlope is actually smart enough to compute the total commission for you, because it'll notice that you're representing both sides, just as like a pointer. So then we'll click submit, and it's going to take us to the checklist tab. Another thing, I'm going to go back real quick. If you have a referral, make sure that you put the referral information in here. So the referral type, the referral agent, broker name, and amount, because this is incredibly important so that we can make sure that we are like computing the commission correctly, and that we are sending that referral money to the broker and agent that it needs to go to. So just make sure you keep that.
I jump in there real quick.
Sure.
Also, we haven't really covered this much, but see where the TC commission is. So that would be a good spot to go up. It's underneath where the commission is, where it says TC fee, where it's calculated.
Yes.
Yeah, so go ahead and put in the 375 there, or if you're charging 425 or whatever it is that you're charging, go ahead and, if you can remember, put that in there. If you don't, not that big of a deal, I'll add it in later, but then that helps me know what to look for on the settlement sheet.
Okay. So then we'll click checklist after you've got all of that in there. And this is the screen that most of you are probably very familiar with, unless you're just starting out in SkySlope. And this is where you'll spend the vast majority of your time in SkySlope. So whenever you are working a current client that has a pending offer, this is the screen that you're going to be operating within. These are all of the documents that you need to upload. It will show you any comments that I've put on it, and you can also add comments, and then it will allow me to, you'll see the option to attach, and then I have the ability, this is not exactly what your screen will look like. I have the ability to make certain things not required. So if, for instance, it's a Maryland or Delaware deal and you don't need some of these items, or if it's a new construction deal, then you may not need some of these items, and I'll go in and I'll change those, assuming that I'm aware. If you want to come in here and attach a document, there are a couple of ways you can do that. That's the most common thing you're going to be doing, is that and reading any comments that I put in. So if you want to attach, you can either click attach, and then it's going to take you to a screen to upload, and you can click upload, and then you can choose a document from on your computer, which this is currently our grand opening photos, but I could stick one in if I wanted to and just be like, bam, that is my agreement of sale. And then another way is you can actually take a document. So if I take my mouse and go to open our documents folder, and I'm going to reduce the preview, and let's see if I can also reduce this. You can also just drag and drop a document right onto whichever document spot you want it to go to. So this is pretty handy, especially if you've got like all of your clients' information separated into folders. You could just, let's pretend like the images folder was John Doe or something like that. I can click on that, and then I can just drag each of my documents into the exact spot that it needs to go, so that not only am I adding the documents, but I'm assigning them, and I don't get taken to a different screen every single time. So that's probably the fastest way to do it. And then you can also, if you go under the Documents tab, you can upload a bunch of documents here. So you can click Upload Document and then just select all of them and click Open, and it'll do all of them. Once they're added here, you'll see that list of all of the documents you've added, and you can check them and then assign them to specific items in the checklist. So that's another way of doing it. And then also, if you are scanning to SkySlope, you can scan a document to this email address. It's like doing a weird thing when I try and highlight it, but it's this one right here. So you can scan to this email address. You can even do all of the documents as one scan. And then when you go in here, you can take this document and you can actually split it. So this one is only a single image, so it's not showing it for me. So I'll upload a multi-page document so you can see what I'm referring to. But if I do, not sure which of these is multiple pages. Let's see. Okay, so this one is 2 pages. So I'll open it. It's a summary from one of our others. And notice now that it realizes that it's a multi-page PDF, I get this split button that shows up. So I can take this document, and if I want to, I can click on the eyeball. I can also hover over the eyeball and it'll show me a preview, but I'm going to actually click on it because I want, if I'm going to split a document, I want it to open up in a new tab so that I can go back and forth. So typically you would have something, if you've uploaded all of your documents as one scan, you're going to have like 30, 40 pages of documents. So what I would do is open it in a new tab, have the other tab resting open with the 40 pages, and then here go through and click the split option. And then it'll show you a pop-up. It should. There it goes. Like, why isn't it popping up? And then you can go in here and you can also scroll through it here, but the thumbnails are going to be a lot smaller. So I personally prefer to have it open in another tab, but that's really up to you. But then you'll go through, you select the beginning page and the end page for any document that you're assigning, dependent on where it ends in the actual PDF. So if my first page was a check, I could do copy of deposit check as the first page. And as soon as you add what that first slot is, or the second slot, third, etc., it will create a new slot that is empty for you. And it doesn't have to be documents that are going to get assigned to your checklist. And this goes for the entire documents tab too, is you can have documents that are completely unrelated to the listed items in the checklist. Like you could have additional addendum, you can have things like if you want to scan in anything that we send you that's related to the property, like there are a couple that have our commission breakdowns in the documents because it was all scanned in. So you can have things that aren't absolutely necessary, and then you can have things that are necessary that just aren't in the checklist. So the documents are not just limited based on the checklist. But then you would go through and you can, if it's not something in the checklist, you can just give it a name. So if I want to name a certain addendum that's being added, then I can just put in addendum X and then put the numbers, and then it will create a new space for any following documents. And then once you've got all of those in, you can click split and assign, or you can just click split. So since I chose copy of deposit check, it wants me to assign because I chose something that it would be assigned to. So I'm going to click split and assign. And now it's telling me that it was split into 2 documents and one of them was attached to your checklist. The copy of the deposit check is the one that was attached. Now I can either go back to the documents list, which is where I'm currently at. That's just the tab with all the documents, or I can go back to the checklist, which is the one that shows which items are required and missing. And once I've done that, then I'm going to see the status has changed to pending, and it's changed to pending for both of these 2 that I uploaded. And that's because as an agent, you'll upload a document, it'll be in pending status, and then I will review it and it will show as completed once I have accepted the document, once I see there are no issues. So if there are any issues, missing signatures, or it's the wrong document, or the signature doesn't quite meet the requirements, like it needs to be a wet signature or it needs to be in blue ink, anything like that, you may receive an email that says that a comment was added to your transaction. And if you go back into it, you may see like a comment here that says needs wet signature or something like that. And that'll be an indication of why it shows as rejected, if it does show as rejected. But otherwise, it'll be in pending or complete status. If it shows as like this light blue, if applicable, it's not required, but if it does apply, then upload it. And then for these darker blue required ones, those ones, you can't move on from this step in SkySlope, this stage in SkySlope, until all of the dark blue requireds are filled in. For instance, when that really comes into like importance is when you have a listing. So when you create a listing, which I'll go through in just a moment, all of these dark blue requireds need to be filled in before you can create it into a listing sold. So just keep that in mind, that these dark blue ones are the ones that you need. So that's kind of like your to-do list. And there are a bunch of other options here too, log, tasks, and property, that you can take advantage of, but these first four are the ones that are mandatory for you to use. And then documents is basically the same as checklist. It's just without actually attaching them. So that one's kind of not required, but handy. And then, so let's assume that I go through and I've added everything. After that, at the end, you don't really need to do anything once you've got all of your documents in, because at that point I will go in, I will see all of the documents are there. They will all get approved, assuming everything has been done correctly. If not, I will be reaching out to you. And after that, once everything's in here, I will go through and close it and archive it. And just so you know, you can either on the home page go to Access Archives and you'll see all of your archived transactions, or you can click on the search bar, and if I type in a property, you will see it shows as this, it's like a light, slightly gray blue bar that says archived. And that'll happen for any of your files that are closed. And then you can go through, and if you want, you can download all of the documents all at once because it's been archived. So that is the summary for transactions. Julie, do you have anything you want to add real quick before I move on to creating a listing?
Probably a couple little minor things. Like, I know sometimes it's hard to get the buyer's title company if you don't have, or if the buyer hasn't decided. So you can, like you said, put the X's in, but really make an effort to come back, because otherwise we're chasing down, trying to figure that out, especially if it's actually a listing sold. If you have the seller and you don't have the buyer, that is the toughest one to get. I would say also, as far as all your documents go, we've kind of been a little lenient on it, but I really would suggest, and we do need the title reports, whether it's our listing sold and if we have the buyers. So we have to have the title reports. If you don't have them when you're heading for settlement, just reach out to the agent or the title company and ask for the title report and upload it. And then if you have any questions as you're going along, just, see us, but I think it's pretty easy. It's just important. We're always chasing everybody down for documents. So I would say just make sure you get all your documents uploaded on here.
Okay. All right, so then going to listing, the vast majority of the information I just described is going to carry over to listings. All of the same stuff is true for the checklists and for the tabs. It's all going to look very, very similar. The big difference with listings are you have the seller. So regardless of whether you have the buyer or not, if you have the seller, you are making a listing. So if you are a dual agent and you have both, you are making a listing. If you just have the seller, you are making a listing. So if that is the case, if I have the seller, I'm going to click on Manage Listings. And then I'm going to click on this green button that says Create Listing. Like I said, it's going to be very similar to making a transaction. It's just that in this case, we have the seller. So I'm going to click Create Listing. And then you get this cute little AI thing that's, she's not that smart. She doesn't really do anything for you, but her name is Sky and she helps you. So you click Enter Listing, and then I'm going to do an address lookup. So I'm clicking address lookup. I'm going to pretend with the same property, 420 Moores Drive in Ackland. You can add a unit. I'm going to click Let's Go. I'm just going to let it automatically pull up the information just like it did with the transaction. Okay, pulled it up. It's got the MLS ID number and the built-in information. And I'm going to say, this is my listing. It's a cute little home. Okay, so now the agent. So this would be you. I'm going to do Angela again. She's probably going to see a couple notifications in her email. And so we're going to go with listing checklist. So if this was a rental property, and you would choose rental property, but this is a home that we are selling, which is typically going to be the case. So listing checklist. Next question, how much is the property listed for? Pretend again that it is listed for a crazy amount of money. Okay, and then listing commission, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. You want to split the amount as if there will be a separate agent. If it does end up being that you represent both parties, SkySlope will figure it out and add both percentages together to give you the full commission. So if you do put it in here as 3%, 3%, but then you have both, then you're just going to get the full 6%. So split it out, it'll be 3 and 3. And we're going to go to next question. And then this is the dates for your exclusive right to sell. So you'll have the listing date and the expiration date. And typically it'll be roughly like 3 months, if not longer. So I'm going to pretend like I have this until the end of the year. And next question. It will pre-populate some of this information. So for this one, it does already have the year that the property was built from, right? So I'm going to click next question. And the source of the deal, again, as with the transactions, you're going to go through, and if it was someone from your referral network, it's going to be personal referral. Okay, and then for the seller, this is, since in this scenario, you now have the seller, you are putting in the seller's information. So this is your client. So Jane Doe and Jane Doe's email. Jane. And if, for instance, it was 2 people on the title, if you've got Jane Doe and Jane Doe's husband, you can add the additional seller here. So I'm going to click next question. It's just her in this situation and create my listing. And you can take a look through. It does show you all the information so you can review it. So if there's an issue, you can go back. But I'm going to create it. Everything looks good. And then it takes you to the checklist. So you've got the tabs that are very similar to the transaction tabs. And like with the transaction, you've got all of the documents that are required or not necessarily required, but if they're applicable, you can add them. And as I stated before, when you sell this, that's when you're going to need all of these documents absolutely have to be in there before you can proceed. So if you have an active listing and it gets an offer and the offer is accepted, if you want to be able to upload all of the remaining documents, you're going to have to fill in these ones first. And then there's a button here that will change to gold once everything's added. And it says accepted contract. So I'm going to attach some images from our grand opening as phony documents for the time being. And then once it finishes, okay, so now I'm going to attach the other ones to these. It's not how I want to do it. I want to go to documents. And I selected 6 images, but only 3 are showing. So I'm going to upload a couple more. I'm going to refresh so I can see all of those. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to go through and it looks like it attached all of the 3 images that I initially uploaded to the first document. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to assign these out to the remaining required ones. We're going to assume that in this fake scenario, these are actually the correct documents and that they are not just photos of the grand opening. So keep that in mind. And then I'm going to reassign these. And there we go. All right, so now once all of the documents have been assigned to the ones in the checklist and you've got all of these items done, then you're going to go through and click on this accepted contract. And I don't actually have to approve it before you click on that. So keep that in mind. I can go through and approve it after the fact. So if you go through and you should be uploading all of these documents the moment that they are finished. So, or within 24 hours, as we said before. So you should not really have, unless you sold it on the same day, you shouldn't really have an exclusive right to sell that's getting uploaded and then you're immediately pushing the accepted contract because you actually have a pending sale because an offer was just accepted. So the active listing should be in here from the day that the exclusive right to sell goes up. And there are a couple of benefits to that, just like there are benefits to getting the transaction documents in a timely manner. For the transaction documents, when you get those in the timely manner, it allows us to order title and conveyancing more quickly. And there is a item in an agreement of sale that says that title needs to be ordered within 7 days. So please make sure that all of the documents for a transaction are uploaded as soon as possible because we need to get that title ordered. And the same is true for the listings. The sooner that you get the exclusive right to sell and all of these documents added to SkySlope, the sooner that we can start trying to promote that property and letting other agents know so that they can send that property out to their clients. And it's also, it allows us to have those documents ready so that when the offer is accepted, then we can go ahead and order the conveyancing. So keep that in mind. The faster you do things, the more we can help you with those properties. So after we've gone through and we have all those, we're going to click accepted contract. And then you're going to see it goes into an incomplete status. And it goes back to what we did with the transactions. It's going to be the same information that you're going to have to verify. So you're going to go through sale price, source, acceptance date. Is it an office lead? So I'm going to go through real quick and fill these in. So personal referral, office lead, no. Acceptance date was hopefully today or the day before. Closing date, when you, again, same as before, this is when you presently have it planned to close. If it changes, it's not a big deal because you can go back in and change the date and update it. So I'm going to choose the 31st. And then everything else is already filled in that's required. Oh, except for the sales price, which we are pretending is $999. And next. Checklist type. Okay, so it will let you know, as it has once or twice already, what you are missing. So I missed the checklist type. So now, just like before with the purchase, when we have the buyer, it is a sale checklist. But in this case, we have the seller. So we are going to do listing sold. So listing sold and next. Okay, and then just like before, you're going to get, it'll go tab through tab. So I'm just going to knock these out since we already went over this information. Going to edit the seller information to have the phone number. And then click next. And same thing with the buyer. And then this question was asked earlier. This is the title company or attorney that is going to be like at the closing table. Like this is the buyer side. So this is who would be responsible for the check being made out to. So if we are holding escrow, we need the title company information or attorney information here of who the check needs to be made out to so that when they take it to the closing table, it has the right information. So that's who should be here. Hi. So I'm going to do, let's see, phone number. And again, another reminder, if you're putting in placeholder information here, make sure that you go back in and update it. So set reminders for yourself if you do that and try and get it in the first time so that you don't have to do that. Extract. And then the agent representing the other side. We are doing as Rob has it. And save and next. Okay, commission again, especially with the seller side, when you go through, it should have it recognized from earlier when you added it in. So you shouldn't even have to add the commission in for if you've got the seller, because you already did. You'll just be reviewing it, making sure it's correct, and adding the broker commission and referral information if necessary. So if you are relaying the broker charge to the client, make sure to put the broker charge here. And if you are charging them extra, so if you're actually charging them 500, make sure that you actually put 500 here, not just the 375 that we're going to take from you. And then for the referral type, make sure that information is filled out if you have a referral for this property, and click submit. Now for the checklist. So just like a transaction, you're going to need to fill in all of these documents that are required and add any additional documentation that you have, any forms that got signed. And then for the, since this is you having the seller, if you do have the seller and the buyer, just make sure that it is selected in the agreement of sale that you are a dual agent, and make sure that under the contacts that you are set as the agent representing the other side. Those are the big two things. So make sure that your forms actually match that, and make sure that the contact information does. And then once you've got all of that in here, then we'll go through and we'll approve everything, send you any comments if necessary, and then we would close the transaction. As for things that are specific to if you are the seller, I think that should be everything. You'll notice that in under contacts, and this goes for both ordering title and conveyancing, if you are curious, we will put a note here under the title company for when we have ordered title and conveyancing. So if it has been ordered, you'll see a note in here that says title ordered and then the date, or conveyancing ordered and then the date. And that's true if we order it. Since now you guys can order your own title through the Qualia Connect portal. If you do that, you don't necessarily have to add it here, because I should be informed if the title is ordered by the agent themselves. But if you want to go through and put it in, it's always helpful as an extra measure for safety. And then from there, you should be all set. I feel like I'm forgetting something I wanted to say.
I'll jump in and add if there's any changes to anything, any terms of the transaction, buy, sell, list, whatever. Please make the changes in SkySlope. That's something I just wanted to put in there.
Yeah. Oh, and then I will add for the intake forms, since that's been a popular question, is if you've got, this is for a transaction or for listing, if you have the buyer intake form, the buyer agent intake form, or the seller agent intake form filled out for us to order the title and conveyancing, you can just upload that to the documents tab. So it doesn't have to be assigned to an item in the checklist, because I will find it under the documents tab. And the way I do it is when I go in, when I see that you've added documents, so when I see these pendings, I will check and see if all of the items have been uploaded that I need for title and conveyancing. And if they have, then as soon as I see all of the items in the checklist that I need, I'll go under the documents tab and I'll take a look and see if the intake form is there. And if it's not, then I'll reach out to you. But if everything else is in here, then that's like my cue, my trigger to order title. So once I have everything I need, I will do so. And then for that, just as a reminder, since we're on the topic, for me to order conveyancing, I need the seller's authorization, or in other words, the loan payoff agreement and the agreement of sale, and then the seller intake form. For title, I need the buyer intake form, the agreement of sale, the MLS printout, the buyer's authorization to order title, and the affiliated business disclosure. So just keep that in mind. And then I think that should be everything. I still feel like there was one other thing I wanted to say, but I'm not sure what it was. But regardless, I'm sure if it comes up, then you can ask a question and I will answer it readily. So that should be everything.
Cassie, did you mention like where the forms are? I may have missed that because I've been looking at my phone. I apologize. So the additional working documents that are needed.
I did not, because I didn't really consider that a part of this training, but I can go through that as well.
Just show them where they're located, because there are other forms that we need. There are office forms. When I set people up, I usually make sure they're on their computer and on their templates in zip forms. But if you need a form signed, if you just click that tab real quick, and she'll show you where it is.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so going back for a sec so that you can see it. So whenever you want to go back to this screen, just click on the logo at the top left. But yeah, so when you're on this screen, you're going to click on working documents. And then go to office docs. And then advisors, since that is our segment of the larger company. And then advisors will show all of the documents for our office, for our affiliate, and you'll see the loan payoff authorization, which is the seller's authorization, the affiliated business disclosure, the listing agent and selling agent intake form. So if you don't have those, you can find them here. Or if, for instance, your computer dies spontaneously and you get a new one and you need to go through all of the setup again, you can find these documents here. Standard versus enhanced title, which is a one abstract sheet that shows the differences between the two, buyer's authorization to order title, and a utility information form. So that is where you can find all of these and you can check them, and you can, if you wanted to, get them DigiSigned or sign, but typically you'll just want to click on the little eyeball and then you will want to download them. So you should have the option, yeah, there it is, to download. So you can download them all from here, and then once you download them all, you can save them to your computer. You can make additional copies, whatever you desire, whatever works for your workflow. So then that should have, I still have that itch that there was something else I wanted to say, but I can't remember. But that should cover all of the important bits. So anything else, Julie?
No, I think that's it. I think that covered it. It was very, very comprehensive. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's going to bother me that I think there's something else, but regardless, I hope that anyone watching has a nice day. All right.